Welcome in to episode 3 of the Hog and the Mic podcast, hosted by myself, Will Colassa. Today I'm here with my grandpa. He was a member of the Navy, and that is mostly what we're going to talk about today. Grandpa, I'll let you introduce yourself, add in anything that you think is relevant. So I'll let you go ahead with that.
Well, thanks, Joe. Yeah, I'm Joe's grandfather. I was in the Navy in 1960 to 1966. Um, my my entrance in the Navy was because of a good friend of mine who asked me. I realized I wasn't going to be able to pay for college, and he asked me to join as a buddy on the buddy plan with Marty O'Brien. And I, from leaving high school in September, we were transferred out to San Diego to the naval base there for training. My my thoughts at that time were that as an individual, I was always taught to be a giver, and I thought it was important that I would serve my country. And I realized when I took my oath, etc., that I had made an agreement with by honoring the Constitution that stated that I would defend the Constitution of the United States and protect the people that were in our country. I never realized at that point that my commitment had to do with just a couple things. It had to do with liberty, and it had to do with responsibility, and it had to do with protecting the Constitution. Today, I often get people that walk by and thank me for my service because I do wear a military cap once in a while. And I realize that I didn't have to agree with people's politics or anything else. All that I was agreeing to was that I believed in liberty and freedom and the right of our beliefs as far as the Constitution, as far as the laws of our Constitution, and that was the people that I was representing. I didn't have to represent anything else other than this was critical to our nation as far as our continuation of our Constitution and our liberty. The Navy was a wonderful time for me. I was a young man growing up. I didn't really have a good understanding of what I wanted to do, and the Navy put me into electronics. So my career was spent in radar and missile guidance and gunfire and that type of thing on board ship. When you give, you always get back. One of the things that I got from the Navy was I attended schools that were the quickest time that you could learn something with just the information. And we were with the 9 weeks or 12 weeks of training, we would be operating gunfire systems, radars, that type of thing, etc. The part that was the most valuable to me was learning that you didn't necessarily have to know all the background, but you could quickly come into compliance with what you had to do to operate systems and learn what was going on. That was valuable to me in my later life, particularly when I went into sales, was realizing that college education is very valuable because it gives you information, but some of these quick learning things allow you to make quick decisions and understand stuff that I'm not sure I would have learned from college. The important aspect of, I guess, of what I'm saying is that the Navy provided me with an education that I could continue to go on after I get out of the service. I served aboard a ship, the USS Newport News, a heavy cruiser that was built in 1949, right after the war. The British had found out that Germany had automatic firing large guns, and there was like 6 or 7 ships built. They couldn't afford it, so they passed on the information to the United States, and we had at that time some heavy cruisers built that would have automatic firing guns. The 8-inch guns that were on the ship were capable of firing 100 rounds out of 3 barrels on turret 1 and turret 2. You would have 100 rounds of ammunition in the air at the same time. So we were like a battleship. If we had to be off coast, we could fire on land and protect who would be fighting, or to hit an enemy, etc. The most important thing I learned in the Navy was following orders. It's very difficult for young people to follow orders. When I went to boot camp, I realized that I wasn't good at following orders. I always wanted to ask why. I learned in the Navy that they didn't have time to tell you why. You just needed to follow because it would mean saving somebody's life or losing somebody's life. It was a growing up for me to realize that there was things you just needed to do when you were told to do them if you were going to be part of a team. Teamwork in life is very important. No one is going to be totally successful without working with other people. And you have to pay attention and listen to what they're telling you, because you may understand of why it's so necessary to understand what they're communicating to get something done. My career in the Navy was fairly short. I traveled mostly in the Mediterranean. We made trips to South America and also to the North Atlantic. I got to visit many places I would never been able to afford at that time. I learned a critical understanding that many do not understand about being citizens of the United States, and that is that we are a very blessed country. In visiting different parts of the world, I recognized how poor people were, how uneducated people were, how hungry people were. It was just a rude awakening as a young man, not realizing the gifts that we have in the United States. I never forgot that, because I realized that we had something to offer, and that was by giving back to other people. In life, giving needs to be learned when you're a small child. You got to understand that in giving is when you receive. And I've tried to do that all my life, whether it's in giving up my time, giving up treasure, but doing things for other people without expecting a return. Because the return that you always get is the fulfillment of knowing that you're able to, in a small way, help other people.
Yeah.
My Navy experience was a wonderful opportunity. It gave me a guideline of how life is lived in most other places, and how important it is to try to help people understand that they need to have freedom and liberty to do things. The United States is a wonderful country. It's a country that is so blessed that most people don't even recognize it. And for any person that fails to recognize the opportunity they have from living in the United States, from education, from jobs, from what you can do on your own, you're missing a wonderful gift. And it's something that you do not want to uh, lose. You need to take advantage of it. My grandson Joe is just starting out, and he needs to have a mentor. He needs to find someone, whether it's going to be on the podcast or whatever it is, that can really help him do a much better job. And those people are out there. All you got to do is ask and go find out.
Yeah. I do want to say you are 3 for 3 so far on calling me Joe. I will say that. So
Will?
yes.
Well, I got a lot of grandsons. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Will.
You're good.
But if you take advantage of collective knowledge and you can work with people, you can change the world and your environment, and that's what's important to do. You want to make things better than you received, and it's easy to do if you are willing to do the work. Too many people today are afraid of working. And I'm talking about labor. I'm not talking about the mental type stuff, etc. You know, part of understanding who you are is recognizing that you have physical capabilities to do something. You can earn money, you can give your time up, you can do all kinds of things. And it's critical for you to do that because it helps other people, and you are rewarded from seeing them grow and being able to do the same thing. So from my standpoint, I like to go back and look at my experiences and learn what I've learned from those, and then share it with somebody else to make sure they get the same opportunity. That's so important to people and to yourself. There's always going to be poor people. There's always going to be people you can help. There's always people that are in need, and doing it not because you have to do it, because you want to do it, makes a big change in everybody's life.
Yeah, that was good. That was a lot. I mean, I just want to let you go because that was all great stuff. But I do kind of want to like bring it back to the, kind of your beginning and your upbringing. So I know you were brought up in Oran, Missouri, correct? Oran was the name of the town?
I was raised in a small city or town, I guess, in southeast Missouri. It was called Oran, Missouri. It was a non-industrialized area. Most people were farming or working as farmhands. And growing up, I remember at one point of my youth, I wanted a blue jean jacket, and they cost $2. So when I went to my father to ask to see if I could buy a jacket, he said, well, as long as you earn the money, you can buy the jacket. So I decided I had a good friend, Buster Bullinger, who they would pick cotton, and I joined them on a Saturday and then the following Saturday. And if you picked 100 pounds of cotton in a 12-foot long nylon bag, you got paid $1 for 100 pounds. So I made $1 on one Saturday, and the next Saturday I made the second $1. And I went to the store to buy my blue jean jacket, but it cost $2.02, not just $2. And I recognized the value of money. I decided that blue jean jacket wasn't worth $2.
Wow.
So I kept my $2 and never bought the jacket. But
what year was this?
What year?
Yeah.
This would be like 1950, 1949 or 1950.
Wow.
And people that I met working picking cotton, a man could pick like 500 pounds of cotton a day, and a woman might pick 300 pounds of cotton a day. And they actually raised their family on $8 a week by picking cotton. Now, I wouldn't advise anybody to do it because you'd be dead by the time you're 40. But but working proves something to you. It shows you the value of a dollar and what's important about earning money. And that was a great experience for me because that jacket was burning a hole in my pocket until I found out that I had to pay $2.02.
Wow.
But those are things that if you sit back and realize what you've done and what the cost is, you can make very good decisions about how you want to proceed in life. We lived in Southeast Missouri for the time till I was about 12 years old, and then we moved to St. Louis and went to a larger city. My father had to find a job because there really wasn't a lot of jobs around where we were at. It was mostly farming, and we didn't own a farm. So we moved to St. Louis, and I attended schools, Catholic schools, where they sort of embedded in us the idea of being generous and caring. And I'm thankful for those people who shared that information with me because it's been an important part of my life of trying to continue that message.
Yeah.
The interesting point of going to school, though, in Southeast Missouri, I found one of my third grade teachers taught me a very important lesson also. She said, Fred, no matter what happens to you, God loves you. And if you ever understand that, you'll never have a problem. You'll never be afraid. You'll never have to worry about anything. And when I was growing up, I learned that lesson. And to be very honest with you, people that don't know who God is and don't know who they are, they're never going to really feel comfortable in this world because we're only visitors here. And that message never left me. It took care of all kinds of worries that I would have. I would always recognize, what do I got to worry about? God loves me. I know God does. I know who He is. And it also gave me my ability to determine what I was going to do with my life. So we moved to St. Louis. I attended school in St. Louis, the high school. Great school.
Okay.
I already told you I joined the Navy right after high school.
Mhm.
When I returned from the service, I started college at the University of Missouri in St. Louis, UMSL. I found that education was still not a priority for me, a formal education at the time. And I decided I was going to study, and I've done that the rest of my life. I've continued to study every day. But I knew what my skills were, and I wanted to apply my skills, and I didn't find that college was going to be that place that I was able to do that. I'm different probably from a lot of people, but I was more formulated on what I wanted to become after I got out of the service, and I knew what I needed to study, and that's how I pursued my job.
So you said earlier, you said that you had a friend or someone that kind of talked you into or suggested going into the Navy? Like that wasn't something that you were planning on doing prior?
Well, my intentions were to go to college. I was going to go off to the University of Missouri. My problems was that all the little jobs I had, I was not going to be able to afford to really stay in college. I'd have to get out of school, work, go back, and I didn't want to do that. So Marty O'Brien, who was my good buddy, still my good buddy, we're still good friends. He came by one day and asked me, he said, "Do you want to join the Navy?" And I said, "I'd rather join the Marines." He said, "Well, I'm going in the Navy." So we joined on the buddy program. And it was a good decision, and I'm glad he asked me if I wanted to go with him. Although we never served together except in boot camp, we continued to be friends. We've shared a lot of things over the years, over the 50, 60, 70 years now that we've been alive. So,
and then Was he, because you said you were in kind of the electronics with radar and stuff like that, was he doing the same things, or was that a reason that you guys didn't serve together, was because he was in another branch of the Navy?
Well, no, he did not. Marty went into the service to be a CB. His parents owned a construction company, and he was in the construction business. So he took a completely different route than I did. I went aboard ship. He never served on ship. He was always doing buildings and stuff in different countries. And during the Cuban crisis, we both happened to be down in Guantanamo, Cuba, after we had cleared the Russian missiles off of Cuba. We ported at Guantanamo, and I was with him on his 21st birthday, and that was the only time that we were ever together in the service after we had went through boot camp.
Wow. Okay. And then another thing that I know you talked about earlier was, noticing the poverty and stuff like that in other countries. Were there certain countries where that was more pronounced, or like where did you really see that the most?
Well, at the time I was in the service, John Kennedy had started a program where the kids were going to countries and working. And the United States was very involved in helping countries develop. The only countries that I was in that I visited that was even close to being equivalent to the United States as far as progress was some of the Scandinavian countries. All the other countries were the services, the schools, everything was different because they didn't have the money, they didn't have an open society. Somebody was always controlling their interest or whatever was going on, and people didn't really have a good opportunity. The worst place I was at was after I was trying to catch my ship. I was flown over to Morocco, and we were just outside of the capital of Morocco. And to be very honest, the whole country stunk. They didn't have sewage. The people were poor. There was a lot of trouble. It was always different little groups getting together and getting in a fight, etc. It was something I just never witnessed. It was a rude awakening of how most people live. Yeah. I remember in Italy, I was walking on the street. We had ported in Italy, and I thought I was going to go see a movie. So I got an Italian newspaper, and I seen a John Wayne movie. I knew I wouldn't understand the English, but I'd seen the movie. I thought I'll go to the movie. Well, I had the newspaper, and there was an elderly woman at the time. She was probably only 50, but she was following me down the street. And so finally I turned around and I said, "Is there something that you want?" And she pointed to my newspaper. And I said, "Oh, okay, well, here, I bought a newspaper. It wasn't much money, but I gave her the newspaper." Well, the thing that shocked me the worst was she went into a park. She took the newspaper and covered herself up to sleep on a park bench.
Wow.
And that was in 1961, I think.
Wow.
So Europe was not even equivalent with resources and stuff to the United States.
Yeah.
But the other countries in Africa and South America, it was very difficult, a difficult life.
Wow. That's crazy. Wow. Okay. So you said that you were in the Navy for 6 years, right? From 1960 to 1966, I guess that's 7 years.
Yeah.
Okay. And then, you said you spent most of your time like in the Mediterranean and South America?
No, I didn't spend a lot of time in South America. We spent more time, I visited, but most of our time was the Mediterranean and the North Atlantic. That was where we always steamed. Okay. I got off the ship before the ship I served on finally went to Vietnam, but I wasn't aboard.
Okay. Wow. That's crazy. Okay. Did you ever I mean, I don't. What was the biggest thing going on during that time? 1960s was like because that
Uh,
was like the Cold War was during that time, right? That was like 70s maybe.
well, the biggest thing that happened when I was on board ship was the Cuban crisis.
Okay.
That was when we got an agreement to take the missiles off of Cuba that Russia
Yeah.
was putting on, and we didn't know a lot about what was happening. But now that I read about the thing, it was the closest we come to a nuclear war.
Hmm.
The two sides were not going to back down, and finally, the Russia backed down because we took our missiles out of Turkey.
Hmm.
We acted like they were the only ones back down. That's not true. The United States took missiles out of Turkey that would be so it sort of calmed everything down from a nuclear threat.
Gotcha.
When I was in high school, they used to tell us that there's a nuclear threat. What you got to do is bend down and get underneath your desk in case there's a nuclear attack.
Yeah.
At least your desk and you would go at the same time if they dropped the bomb.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. That's crazy. Was there any thought or worry that something was gonna, go down while you were serving? Or did you
well,
did you always feel pretty safe or
particularly during the Cuban crisis, the the Cold War went on for a number of years.
Mhm.
I went to Berlin. I seen the difference between East Berlin and West Berlin. They had the wall. They had the Russians put up this wall, and if you were anybody with any intelligence at all, you could look at one side, and Russia was bombed. Bombed out all. I mean, Germany was bombed out all over. After the war. On the east side, it was devastated. On the West was controlled by the free nations, and they were booming.
yeah.
And when people today talk about communism or socialism, for God's sakes, people wake up. That it, it's mind-boggling the difference between a socialist country and a capitalist country or a democracy.
Yeah.
Uh, People have got to wake up. They have no idea of what the challenges are of living in a socialist country.
Mhm. Yeah. Um, yeah, that's crazy. I mean, wow. I don't know. Yeah, that's crazy. I never really, because I've never really I've never seen that, like you said you have, or really had to think about that, I feel like. But um,
You
is
know,
that something that you think is kind
you
of
know,
today
Will,
is a problem?
if every high school student could have the opportunity to go to a socialist country just to visit one day,
Yeah.
they would recognize without you don't even have to ask any questions. You just go, holy criminelli,
Yeah.
what the heck is going on there?
Uh,
And it doesn't matter which one you go to. You can go to Cuba, you can go to North Korea, you can go to any country, any one of them that you want to, and just see how the people live there.
yeah.
Uh, it's insane.
Yeah.
We have socialists today all over this country. I don't know I don't know how silly you can be.
Yeah. Do you think that's a threat to this country today? Like, do you think that's something that is possibly?
Not as long as people like I'm alive, because there's no way that
Yeah.
we've experienced it. You need to take a trip one time if you ever get the opportunity just to see the difference.
Yeah. Yeah. That's crazy. Wow. Well, I mean, uh, are there any, specific stories or anything that really stick out to you from being in the Navy other than, like the ones that you've already told about seeing European countries and stuff like that? Or is there any like, crazy war stories or anything that you have?
Well, the good part about being in the Navy was you couldn't spend your money unless you just gambled on board ship. So the Navy would always cause a lot of trouble when they went into port because we might have saved up, we might have been gone for a month, so we got a month's worth of salary.
Yeah.
And as a youngster that don't know how to handle money, it generally ended up into some. I'm not going to tell any stories because my wife would find out. But you had too much money, you know, and to give you an idea, we could buy a carton of cigarettes for $1 on board ship. Cigarettes were worth $20. As soon one pack of cigarettes was worth $20 when you're in a foreign country because they always wanted American cigarettes. And so I wasn't a smoker, at least of any quality when I was in the service. But boy, I sure got my monthly ration of cigarettes because you could buy anything with cigarettes.
Yeah.
But no, there was a lot of goofy things. You know, one of the goofiest things we ever did, we'd pull into Mardi Gras. And if you've ever been to Mardi Gras and you're a youngster and no one's taking care of you, you get in a lot of trouble. So
yeah. What was the go-to way to gamble on ship?
Well, I'm sorry, say again.
What was like the go-to way to gamble when you were on the ship? Like, what was there the big game that everyone was playing, or any just playing cards, or how do people gamble?
Well, gambling was something a lot of guys made money at. There was professional gamblers in the Navy, professional pool shooters in the Navy, that they could take advantage of any youngster coming in and get his money.
Yeah.
But gambling was something we really once in a while had a movie. There wasn't a lot of entertainment on board ship. You were basically had duty. Most of the time you were repairing something or painting or chipping paint. They kept you busy. I want to tell you one story about going on board the USS Newport News. I was a striker because I was going to go in the fire department. Fire control. When I had went through school, and but when you get on board ship, you're not really put into a division at the first part. Well, the Newport News had just been in dry dock, been repainted, and all the things going on. We were just getting ready to go back out to sea. It was after about 3 months or 4 months just in port. And so we had to load stores on the ship before we went. We had to load ammunition. We had to load food, milk stores, all kinds of stuff. So I was put on the deck force, and we were carrying cases of milk. We had in the front of the ship, there was a reefer, which was a big refrigerator, and in the back was a reefer. So we're carrying milk forward to put in the reefer and forward. And so for 2 days, we're just taking milk, just all we're doing all day is working, carrying milk. And I'm looking at the size of the reefer and I'm like, we can't put that much milk in there. We've been carrying, we've been carrying a ton of milk for 2 days and it's not filled up. Well, what they were doing while we were walking forward, they were having other guys taking milk out of the backside of the reefer and on a lower deck going aft. So I happened to look over and I looked down and I said, "Hey, boats," I said, "I don't know if you know this, but we're carrying milk forward and these other guys are carrying it aft. What the hell are we doing?" He said, "Sturgeon, did we ask you to think?" So we kept carrying milk. They want to keep you busy to keep you out of trouble.
Yeah, that's funny. Wow.
But that happened in the service. You learn that you're going to be doing stuff that makes no sense at all, except to the guy who's in charge of it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so funny. Oh man. Well, I think this is awesome. Like I was saying to you before, like I knew that you were in the Navy, but I didn't really know much other than that. So I think this was just really cool to be able to talk to you and get a lot of those specifics. So I really do appreciate, unless you've got anything else that you'd like to say, but
I want to thank you for asking me.
Yeah, of course, no problem. I knew that you'd have a lot of good stories, and I definitely wanted to get some of those out of you. So I really do appreciate you coming on, and on pretty short notice as well. So thank you, and hopefully I'll see you at Christmas. So
You'll see it. Take care, Will.
yep,
I'm not
have a
going to call
great.
you Joe again.
Okay, that's good. I think that's at least two in a row where you've called me the right name. So
Well, I had 9 kids.
yeah, how many grandchildren do you have?
25.
Okay, yeah, I stopped. I remember when you got to 20, and I was like, that's crazy. But
Well, we inherited some,
yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, thank you again. This was awesome, and yeah, like I said, I'll see you at Christmas. So,
Have a great time at the game.
yep, I will. Have a good one, Grandpa.
Bye-bye.
Yep.